for the B in this BLTA, I'm gonna be using a Beyond Meat burger patty. I'm just gonna use one, which has 20 grams of protein, and I'm gonna form these into bacon-like strips. So everyone has their own preferences as far as like crispiness. I'm a huge fan of really, really crispy and crunchy. So for me, that's what I'm gonna do. The time that you cook this is gonna be different for everybody. So I just form these little strips with my hand. Yeah, I know they don't look exactly like bacon, but the crispier it is, I think the closer to bacon it tastes. These are gonna cook really, really quick. They've only been on here probably for about 45 seconds, going on a minute. So I'm probably gonna flip them pretty soon. So I flipped them. I may flip them again to get them even crispier because I really, really want that crunch. I also didn't use any butter or oil. Depending on your pan, you may or may not need it, but Beyond Meat burgers are pretty fatty on their own. I've toasted some Dave's Killer Bread. Whenever I buy bread, Dave's Killer Bread is pretty much the only bread I buy. I've toasted the bread and now I'm gonna top it off with some vegan mayonnaise. I really like the brand Just For All. I think it's the best. I just can never ever find it anywhere. And if you don't like mayo, I actually have another alternative for you. This is a goddess dressing. A bunch of companies make goddess dressings, but Trader Joe's and Annie's are my two favorite goddess dressings. But just make sure that there's no dairy ingredients in your goddess dressing. Just check the labels. So goddess dressing, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Caesar dressing. It's a little different, but it is a really good flavor. For lettuce, I'm just using iceberg lettuce. I'm gonna add the avocado. I'm just using a whole little, very little baby avocado. Add your tomato slices, your bacon strips. Some tips if you're bringing this to work or to school, I would pre-slice the tomato and avocado, but store it in a container and then add it to your sandwich later. And then also if you're gonna toast the bread, I would let that cool before putting everything else on it and let the bacon cool as well to prevent condensation and your sandwich getting all moist and gross. If you don't use reusable containers, I highly recommend using brown paper sandwich bags instead of plastic bags because plastic is awful. That's all I gotta say. I'm gonna first create the meat. So this is not a unique combination necessarily. A lot of meat alternatives are now using walnuts or cauliflower just to get like a vegan meat alternative that still tastes kind of meaty but is made from whole foods. I'm gonna first start by using a 1/3 cup of walnuts and I'm gonna be adding all of this to a blender so it's gonna be a meaty consistency. Sorry, this looks really weird, but it's sun-dried tomatoes soaked in water. Instead of canned, oily, sun-dried tomatoes, I got the dried tomatoes, so they just have a lot of sodium. So soak them for probably just 15 minutes to kind of release some of the salt and also to get them a little bit softer for blending. I am using an estimate of 1/4 cup of these sun-dried tomatoes. I'm gonna squeeze out some water. So it's about 8 pieces of sun-dried tomato. And then I'm gonna use a 1.5 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. This is the brand of nutritional yeast I use. And a 1.5 tablespoons, it has 8 grams of protein, which is so much for so little. And then for flavoring it up to be more meaty, I'm gonna add in 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, and for more flavor, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. Now you can really change up the flavor of this meat. If you're a fan of, say, herb roasted turkey, you can add some seasonings. My sister actually made this same recipe and she added less nutritional yeast, she added some hemp seeds and some different herbs, and her husband loved it. A lot of taco meats are made with crumbling up walnuts and sun-dried tomatoes or even cauliflower, so this is nothing new. It's just a different variation and we're gonna put it on a sandwich instead of a taco. So it should be kind of crumbly like this, but it should be able to stick together so it doesn't fall apart when it's on your sandwich. Now I'm just gonna put it all together. So we've got some Dijon and mayo, add on the turkey meat, and then I'm just gonna add all of my desired toppings. You add whatever you want. So avocado, onion. This is one of my absolute favorite cheeses these days, Via Life cheddar. I'm gonna do 2 slices of cheese, tomato and cucumber, iceberg lettuce. For the Greek salad sandwich, we're gonna start with the protein filling, which this is a little more than 3/4 cup of garbanzo beans, or some people call them chickpeas. I've already pre-mashed them. It's pretty much just a half of a can of garbanzo beans. And we're going to flavor it. So we're gonna use half a teaspoon of dried oregano. This is 1/4 of a lemon. I'm gonna do 1.5 tablespoons of red wine vinegar and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Add salt and pepper to your liking. So I'm gonna mix half of this into the garbanzo beans, and we're gonna use the rest on the rest of the sandwich. As an option too, if you're not a fan of really sharp flavors, you can also add like a little bit of maple syrup to calm down the sharpness of the flavors. And again, I'm gonna use Dave's Killer Bread. I'm actually gonna go and toast this. While the bread is toasting, I'm gonna take some of my other toppings and pour the dressing over them. These are canned artichoke hearts that were in water, not oil, tomatoes, onion, arugula, and cucumber slices. So I just wanna make sure that enough flavor gets all over this stuff. So you can use your hands, you can use a fork. I kinda wanna keep the ingredients semi-together. On one side of the bread, I'm gonna add this Kalamata olive spread. And then on the other side, I'm using Dijon mustard. And for feta cheese, I'm using Veal Life's feta. So this stuff is seriously so good. It looks really weird because it's so clean in this block, but when you actually take it out and crumble it, it looks like feta cheese. And it actually really does taste like feta cheese. And then I'm going to add my chickpea mash and then my salad toppings. Tomatoes, cucumber. So this is an awful lot of toppings. It's gonna be a pretty bulky sandwich. So not everybody's gonna make it on there. We'll have some extra. So this one's definitely gonna be tricky to piece together, but we're gonna do it. Now that is one heck of a sandwich. Yum. And if you're gonna end up taking this to like work or to school, I definitely recommend don't cut it like I just did. Just pop it in a bag and then just, you know, like rip the paper bag and eat it out of the bag, because that way it's gonna prevent all the falling out, because it's a hefty sandwich.